Podcast Answer Man, episode number 163.
Entertaining, educational, and encouraging content that makes a difference.
This is GSPN.TV.
Join the community.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Answer Man. My name is Cliff Ravenscraft. Of course, this is a weekly podcast where I try to answer as many questions as I can for free to help you along in your podcasting journey. Also, like to share a little bit of my own journey in podcasting and new media, sharing what's going on in my life, doing this stuff full time, and I have a fun show prepared for you today. At least I hope I have a fun show prepared for you today. Hey, I am so excited to be here each and every week, and I just want to let you know real quick, I just put together the voicemails that I am going to be playing here in today's shows, and I want to let you know that currently, if you were to call in voice feedback and ask a question for the Podcast Answer Man show, or send some audio feedback to play on the show, you would probably make it within the next 1 or 2 episodes. So right now is about the time to give me a call. Usually I have about 6 weeks worth of material lined up, and just recently I've been playing a bunch of bunch of your feedback in several shows, and I'm starting to run a little low. So if you want to get your question into Podcast Answer Man, the phone number here, 859-795-4067. Again, it's 859-795-4067. Hey, one of the things I want to tell you is that, as you guys know, I'm a big, huge proponent of saying, if you have an audio podcast, you shouldn't just be audio podcasting. You should do some video. You should do a little blogging of text, writing out things. You should be hitting all the different ways of getting your message about your passion. Whatever it is, whatever your message is, you should be doing video, audio, and text on your website. And one of the things that I posted on my website just recently was a blog post titled, "Is Adobe Audition Coming to the Mac?" And there's a video from YouTube that I posted or pasted into or embedded into my website. And you should check it out because it is totally a brand new version of Adobe Audition, and it would certainly appear to be running on the Mac OS. Now, there's some debate on whether or not it might be running in some kind of special program that allows you to run Windows-based software on a Mac computer. I will tell you this, though. I'm very familiar with Adobe Audition, and I can certainly tell you that the video is official, that it is real, it's not faked, and it is not Adobe Audition 2.0, and it is certainly not Adobe Audition 3.0 that we currently have available to us on the PC. There are some features and some functionality in that video that are not anything I've ever seen. Now, granted, I don't use the full spectrum of everything that is available to Adobe Audition. I mean, if you were a band and you wanted to produce a professional quality CD, you could do that with Adobe Audition. I'm just producing some audio content and running some post-production processes to really beef up the sound of my audio. So I do very little when it comes to Adobe Audition. But I do know that, though, some of the features there definitely point to the fact that this is the next release of Adobe Audition. Now, here's the other thing I will say, though, is that, I'm not sure if maybe this was a new version of Adobe Audition running, like I said, in a software program that allows you to run things on your Mac. There is all sorts of speculation, all sorts of conversation happening in the comment section over at macrumors.com, which is where I first saw this. And I'm telling you, I'm leaning on the side of where it might possibly be a reality that we get Adobe Audition on the Mac. If that's the case, my friends, I will be able to kiss Windows goodbye. I seriously will, because right now I have a 27-inch iMac. I have completely ported everything over to the Mac. I am now a Mac-only person, with the exception that I leave Parallels running Windows XP open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on my 27-inch iMac. It's, in fact, I use a program called it's a program called Spaces, or a feature called Spaces on my Mac, and it's in space number 2 at all times. In fact, I'm going there right now, and I'm going to tell it to start processing another file. So this is my 4th podcast of the day today that I'm recording, and I'm processing that in space 2. Now I've just switched back to space 1, back to my show notes and stuff. But anyway, I leave Adobe Audition up and running in space 2 inside of Windows XP, inside of Parallels, if that all makes sense. And I hate that. I wish I could just run Adobe Audition on the Mac, and it's never been available on the Mac. But so many of the other products from Adobe are, such as, the other one that's important to me, of course, is just Photoshop. But it's a possibility, and I just love the possibility. And I will tell you this: I've paid $349 for Adobe Audition twice now. And if it comes to the Mac, and if I'm not able to port it over, I hope that I'm able to just take my license that I have on my PC, and I hope that I can just port it over to the into the Mac version. Although I think this is going to be like a new release. I don't know if it's going to be. It could possibly be like a Adobe Audition 4.0. If that's the case, then maybe I can just get by with just an upgrade. But if worst case scenario, if Adobe Audition has the same multi-band compressor, hard limiter, and functionality as what I've been using on the PC side, if it has all of that, I will tell you right now, I won't even blink. I will pay $349 for the software again, and I will have it on my Mac. And I will shut down my Parallels Windows XP and only use that on rare occasions. Now, with that being said, I still am going to need a viable alternative to my MP3 tagging. So right now, there are only two. Actually, I said there's only one thing that I really do on the Windows. I actually use my MP3 tag editor, which if you go to mp3tag.de, it is I believe it's a German site. Anyway, mp3tag.de is where I get how I tag. That software is how I tag all of my metadata into my files. I find that tagging your files in iTunes, for some reason, when you add artwork, that artwork does not show up on Windows Media Player on Windows Media on the PC side of things. So I want to make sure that that the artwork is actually showing up everywhere. And Daniel's in the chat room. He goes, wow, that's $349 more than Audacity. Exactly, it is, but it also saves all your settings and presets so that when you do your multi-band compressor, you don't have to redo it over and over and over again. So, and when you're doing 7 to 10 podcasts in a single day, then it's definitely worth using. But it may not be for everybody, and I am certainly on the fringe out there as far as people who use podcasting as much as I do. But you know what? The thing is, there are some of you out there who want to go for consistent quality and ease of use, and you just want to be able to click a couple buttons and have what you want done. And that's what I love about Adobe Audition. All right, so moving along, we do have a couple questions that were submitted from you guys today, and we're going to get right to the first question, and we're going to turn over to my great friend, Wayne Henderson, who wants to know something about podcaster insurance.
Cliff, hi. Wayne Henderson here from the VoiceOver Journey podcast, calling in for the podcast Answer Man. And the question I have this week is not only perfect for you being the podcast Answer Man, but also you can maybe draw on your past experience in your soul-sucking job in insurance. And my question is, how do you feel about possibly having insurance? I don't even know exactly what it would be called, but I guess to protect you against possible libel, even though, most of us podcasters don't say anything that would be considered libel, but you never know. I heard a podcast, I don't remember if it was Jason Van Orden's a year or so ago, touching on it, but I forget what episode it was and exactly what it was about. Plus, that's a year or two ago and things might be different then. How do you feel about that? Do we have to take any steps as podcasters or even just as tweeters and bloggers, something that would encompass a little bit of protection on all those fronts. And do you have any idea what that type of insurance is called and what it might cost? Don't mean to bring you back to your soul-sucking job in insurance, but drawing on that knowledge in order to help everybody in the world of podcasting, doing the things we love to do with passion. Thanks, Cliff. This is Wayne. Now, back to the Podcast Answer Man podcast, already in progress.
Wayne, thank you so much for your call and your question. And I can give you a little insight into the podcasting liability insurance question. Now, here's the deal. First of all, the protection here is what if we actually say something and somebody feels like we have either slandered them or slandered them. We're saying things, representing them in a way that is not accurate and can do harm to their ability to move forward and all kinds of other stuff. What happens if we do that? That certainly could be a potential risk. And I will tell you, I will encourage anybody who's listening to this to listen to the second half of Family from the Heart, episode number 112. And you can hear, something that happened recently on our podcast, Family from the Heart, where I had actually had somebody who threatened legal action if I didn't take down the episode number 112 of Family from the Heart. She said she was going to get her dad, who's a lawyer, to send me some stuff. But anyway. So just to think, it is very possible that you could get somebody upset with you. And here's the one thing I want to let you know is that here's the one thing: anybody can sue anybody for anything. I mean, it's just crazy what people can sue for. And you certainly have. And Daniel's in the chat room. He says, "Ooh, what was 112?" Well, you have to go listen to Family from the Heart, episode number 112, Daniel, and you'll find out. In fact, if you listen to the first 30 seconds, matter of fact, here, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll tease this for everybody. So familyfromtheheart.com, and I will click play, and you'll hear I did pull down the episode just to re-release it. And let me pull this up for you. Hold on one second. Okay, I have it pulled up here. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And here's Hello, everybody. This is Cliff Ravenscraft from familyfromtheheart.com and gspn.tv. You're about ready to listen to episode number 112 of this particular podcast, and I wanted to give you some notes related to the second half of the episode, just in case you start wondering what's going on with the bleeped out name. Basically, we had received a call from one of our listeners who disagreed with our thoughts on higher education that we shared in last week's episode. Now, what we had done is we had played the audio feedback that was left on our listener voicemail feedback hotline, and after playing that, we had responded to her disagreement. Unfortunately, after listening to the episode, she felt like we misrepresented her call, and she requested that I take the episode down as she felt like it was unfair to represent her call in such a way. I've gone back and listened to the episode again in entirety, and it is absolutely important to me, I believe, that we actually leave everything intact as much as possible. But what I have done is I have actually removed any reference to this caller's name, and I've actually taken the original call that was the voicemail feedback, and I've ran it through some software to manipulate the sound so that you can't even tell the sound of this person's voice. So in no way can it be traced back to any certain individual. But I did want to let you know that ahead of time. Stephanie and I sometimes will share our thoughts and opinions that are somewhat maybe counter to the way our culture has always taught us to believe things. And this is a topic that, as you will find out later in this episode, and the reason why this thing's over an hour and 10 minutes in length, that it is a topic that we feel very strongly about. And with that being said, when you actually do hear the second half of the episode, that is why the audio actually sounds a little bit off when the voicemail is played back, and why we've bleeped out any reference to this person's name. But we've done this, really in fairness to her. She did not feel like we represented her well, and I just want to let you guys know that. But also, I want to let you know to make sure that you understand when you hear Stephanie respond and say that she feels the certain way she does, she's reacting and sharing the way she feels, not necessarily the way that the caller intended. And we absolutely know 100% that the caller did not intend to come off sounding the way that we personally felt the call sounded as far as the wording and stuff. So, well, if that's not going to get you to listen to the second half of this episode, I don't know what will. But anyway, we just want to say thank you for subscribing to Family from the Heart, and here's episode number 112 right now. All right, so there you go. You can listen to that episode number 112 at familyfromtheheart.com if you're interested in hearing what the whole feedback was and then how we responded to that feedback. But anyway, so I will tell you this, Wayne, and everybody else listening, that we were asked to take it down. She was very offended by our response, and she said, she said it was slander. She said that I believe she said that I murdered her in a public forum. Was another phrase that she put in some email to me. And when I responded and with the definition of what slander was, and I certainly, defended that I don't believe we slandered her, we just disagreed. And so basically she said, well, that's fine. That's a great definition from the dictionary of slander, but I'll have my dad, who is a lawyer, send you a letter if it comes to that. So, I mean, she was talking about threatening legal action about, our response to her audio feedback. So out of 2,200 episodes, my first podcast finally where somebody threatens legal action about something I might possibly say in a podcast. So is it possible that somebody could get upset with something you said? Yeah, it is possible. Do I have podcaster liability insurance? No, I don't. No, it's not because I don't believe in it. I just really personally haven't felt the need for it. I don't think I really go about doing things that I think would be legally actionable. Now, the thing is now because somebody's dad is a lawyer, could it be possible that they might pursue something? It's like, maybe, but obviously you can go listen to episode number 112 yourself, and you might think, maybe we were a jerk for how we responded, which I don't think we were. But you could listen to yourself. There's certainly nothing that any court, any jury, or any judge is going to consider us, responsible of slander in any way, shape, or form from that episode. But with that being said, if I were to be sued and had to go to court, I mean, there's obviously legal costs and stuff like that, and defense and things like that. So that's where insurance can come in. So let me talk about it's called personal liability, and for most podcasters, it's going to be personal liability. Now, for those of you who own a business and you're podcasting about your business, this is completely different. But let me talk about for somebody who is doing this and podcasting is their hobby. Well, if you have a renter's insurance policy that has personal liability insurance included, which most of them do, then you should be okay in some circumstances. If you have a podcast, or if you own a home, more than likely, you better have some personal liability insurance on your home. But anyway, if you have home insurance, you probably have personal liability insurance. And what personal liability insurance does is it actually provides legal fees, it provides legal defense for things where somebody might personally sue you for something. And one of the things that is covered under personal liability, of course, you might want to read the fine print in your policy, which you can ask your insurance agent for. But it should actually include libel and slander in the things that you are protected against. So if you actually slander somebody in your hobbyist podcast and somebody sues you and it's all personal and stuff like that, you could probably get legal defense covered by your insurance company. Now here's the deal. You want to probably talk to your own insurance agent about that. And again, I am no longer in the profession of insurance, and I'm glad I'm not, because that was a soul-sucking job. But I want to tell you this: talk to get your own legal advice on this one. Here's the thing, though: if you make any kind of money from your podcast, if you are advertising in your podcast, any kind of advertisements at all, you got any kind of advertisements on your site. It could even be construed if you actually have affiliate marketing of any type, then you may run into an issue where it's not personal. And your hobbyist podcasting could be considered a business and therefore not covered under the personal liability section of your homeowner's insurance. Well, that's where you come into what we call business insurance, and then you would need business liability. And now, of course, that business liability policies have been around forever. Public speakers. It just there's all kinds of. I mean, any kind of business you could actually do or say or write something about somebody and be sued for slander. And business liability insurance, they should have some clause and coverage for that as well. Now, I will tell you, when podcasting first came out and it got really popular, there was a few insurance professionals, very few insurance professionals that wanted to quote unquote kind of take advantage of the opportunity, not take advantage in a wrong way, but they were going to seize the opportunity in a way to really fill a niche and become the first to provide podcaster liability insurance. And so if you actually do a search for it, I know at least one insurance professional out there had actually went to a company and had a specific policy made, a specific policy offering made for podcasters, specifically for podcasters. I never followed up on it. I was still podcasting as a hobby at the time when it came out. But it's not something that I have even thought about purchasing at this point. Although I probably should, because I'm a pretty opinionated person and I'm not afraid of sharing my opinion. And I do interact a lot with people who call in. But at the same time, I don't have the coverage myself, Wayne, and I'm not sure that I really feel the urge to run out and get it just yet. So one of the things that I will tell you that I have done is I have created my business as a limited liability corporation. It's an LLC. I file with an S Corp election on my taxes and stuff like that. And I've been told and given legal advice. Now, again, this is what I've been given, and this is my understanding. This is not legal advice to you. But the way that I understand it, that if I were to get sued as a result of doing something with my business, that the only thing they could do is seize any of the assets of the company if I were to do something terribly bad. So worst case scenario, I get sued for slander. Somebody says I owe them $150,000. Worst case scenario, they could come and take away my 27-inch iMac, which I bought as a business purchase. And maybe a mixer here and there, or a couple microphones. I mean, that's my business assets. So there you go. But as far as being able to take my home and count all of that against me, I from what I understand, I have some legal defense there. But I tell you what, I have a friend of mine. His name is Gordon Fahrenmike, and he actually is a entertainment lawyer. And I'm thinking about, he and I talked about this, and Gordon, I know that you're out there listening. He and I talked about this a lot via email several months ago about doing a special webinar or probably a teleseminar where we would actually answer entertainment podcaster legal questions and have a bunch of stuff to talk about. So if you guys are interested in that, send me some feedback to feedback@gspn.tv if you would be interested in participating in a webinar where you could ask an entertainment lawyer about legal issues related to podcasting, like using music in your podcast and all kinds of other stuff. As far as, what do you get? Those agreements where you have people sign some forms, consent forms for, interviews and all kinds of other stuff. But anyway, if you're interested in something like that, feedback@gspn.tv, let me know, and I'll get on the horn with Gordon, and we'll put something like that together. I know that we had been talking about it. I've just been so busy lately that I hadn't got around to it. All right, so hey, next up we have a question. Actually, you know what? No, we're going to go to John next, who had some feedback regarding the Dan Miller interview. And then this is the one where Dan Miller interviewed me, I believe. Go ahead, John.
Hi, Cliff. My name's John. I'm out of St. Louis, Missouri. I don't really have any questions for you. I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed your podcast I'm not sorry, not your podcast, but your interview with Dan Miller the other night. Listened to it and listened to it a few more times today. Thought it was excellent, inspiring, and really keeps me going. I'm trying to get out of the 9-to-5 grind and do my own thing, and hopefully one day we'll be at that. But anyway, I think it's great that you did what you did, got out of your insurance business and got into what you really wanted to do. So, I'm going to keep moving, and I just want to say thanks for a great interview. So thanks a lot, and keep doing what you're doing. All right, bye-bye.
All right, John, thank you very much for your call. And, I had a fun time. Anytime I get to talk with Dan Miller is a great time. I'm not too happy about the circumstances, though, that I'm actually talking to my good friend Dan Miller today. He got his office right next to his office. I'm just talking feet away from his office. Lightning completely obliterated a tree right next to his office. And, of course, it fried power lines, completely knocked out all the ports on his computer, and possibly knocked out the headphones channel on his nice Mackie mixer that he purchased from me. So not too happy about the fact that occurred. And so anyway, I'm going to be working with him tonight to help him find an alternate way of getting his audio from his Edirol recorder that he's going to record today over to the website. So anyway, I'm going to be talking with Dan Miller tonight, but I enjoy it. I'm a blessed person to be where I am. And I really want to give credit to God, because I really feel like his hands have been upon a lot of the decisions that I've made in my business and in my direction that I go and stuff like that. And I just want to encourage you, John, and everybody else listening to this, keep pursuing your passion. And I'm going to recommend a book to everybody listening. If you haven't read it already, it's a book by Jason Fried, and that's Fried, I believe. And the book is called Rework. I really want to encourage you to get this book. It's called Rework. I'm going to pause for just a second, and I'm going to pull up a little bit here. Here we go. And so basically, what I did is I just pulled up my iPad here. I've got the Kindle for the iPad application on here. And it's awesome, by the way. And I'm reading Rework, and there's by the way, these chapters are like 2 or 3 paragraphs each little section is. It's really great nuggets of just wisdom. And anyway, listen to this one. It's called The Myth of the Overnight Sensation. Okay, here and trust me, I believe this 100 billion%. All right, so if that tells you anything. I'm going to read to you, this is word from his book, Rework. You will not be a hit right away. You will not get rich quick. You are not so special that everyone else will instantly pay attention. No one cares about you, at least not yet. Get used to it. You know that those overnight success stories you've heard about, it's not the whole story. Dig deeper, and you'll usually find people who have busted their butts, and I've actually replaced one word there for you guys, for years to get into the position where things could take off. And on the rare occasion that instant success does come, he says it usually doesn't last. There's no foundation there to support it. Trade the dream of overnight success for slow, measured growth. It's hard, but you have to be patient. You have to grind it out. You have to do it for a long time before the right people notice. You may think you can speed up the process by hiring a PR firm. Don't bother. You're just not ready for that yet. For one thing, it's too expensive. Good PR firms can cost upwards of $10,000 a month. That's a waste of money right now. Plus, you're still just a no-name with a product nobody's ever heard about. Who's going to write about that? Once you've had some customers and a history, you'll have a story to tell. But just launching isn't a good story. And remember, great brands launch without PR campaigns all the time. Starbucks, Apple, Nike, Amazon, Google, and Snapple all became great brands over time, not because of PR push up front. Start building your audience today. Start getting people interested in what you have to say, and then keep at it. In a few years, you too will get a chuckle when people discuss your quote unquote overnight success. My friends, this is an awesome book. Rework by Jason Fried. And for those of you who want to buy this book, I actually have an affiliate link with Amazon. You can pick it up on Amazon. It's not that expensive. Just head over to gspn.tv/rework. And that's Generally Speaking Production Network is what that stands for. Again, that's gspn.tv/rework. And it's an excellent book. Now, James in the chat room, check this out. He says, you got to get this. He says, you got to give it a read. Just, let's see here. Actually, I just started my coaching. Oh, you know what? There's been a lot of conversation since I actually saw that. Anyway, I won't go. I can't find the spot in the chat. But anyway, I saw somebody in the chat room say that it's a great read. You can read it in one afternoon. And I'm sure that that's the case. But it is funny. I mean, literally, this is a book that I should be able to read in just one afternoon. I have been reading it for the past 3 weeks, and I am now like 73% of the way through the book. And let me tell you how I read this book. I read, what I'll do is the only time I read is when I have my iPad with me and I get some free time here and there. And so I might have like 5 minutes. I open up the Amazon Kindle, I go to that book, and I'll read just one section. And then that's it. I won't move on. I'll just read that one section, and I'll just think about my business and, to see where I either agree or disagree or where I can apply this truth or this principle in my business. And I just soak it in one little nugget at a time. And it's almost like I would almost consider Rework to be kind of like a business devotional. It's where you just sit there and you just open it up and it's a thought of the day kind of book. So that's the way that I'm reading Rework. And I'm really getting a lot of value out of it. And a lot of this stuff I've experienced. And as far as anybody who would look at me, I mean, I've actually had people refer to me as an overnight success. And that's far from the truth. It's exactly like what Jason says. If you dig deeper, you'll see there's a guy who's busted his butt for years. And then finally you get noticed by the right people, and I will be honest with you. When I got noticed by Dan Miller, by golly, I will tell you what, some things really turned around. Some amazing things. But you know what? It wasn't until 5 years later that Dan Miller ever heard of who Cliff Ravenscraft was. So now he and I are great friends. We talk on the phone once a week, and he sends more business to me than I can even begin to tell you anytime he talks about me on his podcast. I think if you go to a recent podcast he did, let me pull something up here. I'm going to pause for a second. All right, so basically I've got it here. I'm unpausing now, obviously, for those of you on the recording. This is from the May 26, 2010 episode of the 48 Days podcast by Dan Miller, which, by the way, has, 40, 50, 60,000 subscribers, something like that, probably. I'm not completely sure right now off the top of my head, but he's got tens of thousands of subscribers, okay? Listen to this. By the way, my name, if you listen to the entire May 26, 2010 podcast, I think my name probably came up, the name Cliff Ravenscraft probably came up at least 3 times, if not 4 or 5 times in this episode. So listen to this right here.
And I've enjoyed the benefits of doing that. Well, first comment here comes from Leanne, who says, Dan, thanks for your webinars. They're interesting, informative, and helpful. And she's referring to the Tuesday night calls that I do. Tonight's topic was very relevant. She wrote this last night, obviously, when I had on Cliff Ravenscraft, where we talked about podcasting. She says, I had just purchased my podcasting equipment last week. Between you and Cliff, many of my questions were answered, and I'm hoping to do my first podcast in the next week if I can get all the wires going to the right places. Well, as in most things in my life and business, when I want to learn about a new area, I use a coach. And I have, in fact, engaged Cliff as my podcast coach. So I have wires running everywhere here in my office. And if one of them got unplugged, I'd be up a creek because I have no idea where it goes or why, but he set everything up for me, which makes my turning things on and getting going pretty stinking simple and easy, and I'm grateful for that. And I encourage any of you who want to do podcasting to do the same thing. Now, you can start very simply.
All right, so there you go. So you get a feel for that. Now, the one thing I will tell you is that, Dan, I gave you an entire diagram of everything, every single knob and all the other things, and he knows this. But I did. I gave him an entire diagram, and it's all printed out, and it has every knob has it's got the description of every knob, what it does, and where it's actually turned. So if somebody came in, if a grandkid came in and just messed all the knobs up, he could actually take that document that I provided, and he could actually go back and do all those. Now, obviously, Dan's probably just set that to the side and probably didn't care. But the good news is I have that here. And there have been multiple times when Dan's called me up and says, Cliff, I need to do this, this, or this. And I basically take that diagram. I have a PDF copy of it myself, and I've been able to just simply look at a virtual copy of his entire layout as I diagrammed it out for him. So it's very helpful. But did you hear that? It was a personal recommendation. And again, my name came up several times in that episode. I'm not an overnight success. I am somebody who has been busting it for years. And over time, my name got out, and eventually the right people do take notice. And it didn't happen because of a bunch of PR and stuff like that. So I'm telling you, get Jason Fried's book, Rework. It is definitely going to help anybody out there who's aspiring to do business, to do a business. And I would encourage you to get that. Again, gspn.tv/rework will take you to there. And again, that is my affiliate page, just so you know, for Federal Trade Commission. I do benefit if you use that link. So there you go. All right, moving right along. We're doing good on time. We're going to move on to Michael, who called in twice, and here's his first call. Michael, take it away.
Hey, Cliff, this is Michael from Birmingham, Alabama, and I am calling to leave a question for the Podcast Answer Man podcast. And first, I want to just thank you for all the help you've given me through the podcast and initially after the Dan Miller interview. So I've really gotten up and rolling on my blog and podcast, goofyfitnessdad.com, and I had a question for you. I did pretty much everything that you suggest in your podcast, and some different things that I learned from you and learned on the web with getting the podcast created and uploaded in the RSS feed and submitted to iTunes and all the different sources. iTunes, though, here's my question. iTunes is taking a long time. I submitted it last Thursday, May the 25th, I believe it was, and it's still in limbo out there. And I've searched on your site and a lot of other sites, and I can't find any consistent answer to this. There are people who I know who I've interacted with on Dan Miller's 48 Days site who have submitted their podcast, and it's up and searchable the next day. So I don't know if you have an answer to anything that I could do to get it the process sped up or anything like that. But I submitted the RSS feed through FeedBurner, and then I tried to go back and resubmit through Libsyn after a little over a week, and it said that both of them have already been submitted. So if you can give me any insight into that, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, Michael, it sounds to me like you've had some trouble there. Now, of course, before I answer your question, I'm going to play his second call. Go ahead, Michael. Take it away again.
Hey, Cliff. This is Goofy Fitness Dad Michael from the Birmingham, Alabama area again. I'm calling about the Podcast Answer Guy, and I am calling to follow up on the question that I left last night. As luck would have it, iTunes approved my podcast today. So it took them about a week and a half for mine, whereas some people get it approved the next day. So my question, I guess, has been resolved. So unless this is a good topic that you want to have on your show, there's no need to answer that for me now. But again, thanks for all you do, and I've really appreciated interacting with you, and I hope you're not sick of me emailing you back and forth. And I really find a lot of value in what you do. Thank you so much.
Hey, Michael, no problem at all. It's my pleasure to try to help out as many people as I can. And as long as one day you keep me in mind for consulting or big equipment purchases, that's why I'm out here, and it's why I do what I do to get the word out about this. But at the same time, I also do this podcast because I have a passion for podcasting. And, hey, I wanted to let you know this whole iTunes thing, it is the biggest thorn in a podcaster's side. But it's a double-edged sword, because I will tell you, let me just say that podcasting is as popular as it is today because of iTunes. But at the same time, iTunes just doesn't hit the mark all the time when it comes to making it easier for people in the area of podcasting, especially when it comes to this directory, because they don't post a lot of help documentation for iTunes. They don't really tell you a lot about what's going on there and who answers what and how do you get things and how long is it going to take. There's certainly nobody you're going to be able to call and talk to. You're just not going to be able to get anybody on the phone and talk to somebody in the podcasting department of the iTunes music, store, the directory. Here's the one thing I will tell you. I have seen people who have been approved within hours. I'm talking within 2 or 3 hours. I submit their podcast into iTunes, and within 2 or 3 hours, they get the email saying you've been added to the store. You'll start showing up in the feeds, within the next day or so. And usually, sometimes even by the next day, those people will be able to be found via a keyword search for their podcast. I have seen people where it's taken 3 weeks or more to actually get their show to show up. Now, here's the one thing I do know, is that there is not this huge department of people that work for podcasts. Now, although there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts listed in iTunes, believe it or not, I think it's probably, if I had to guess, it's probably about 3 or 4 or 5 guys that oversee this little department over there. And, they take hundreds, if probably not thousands, of new submissions of RSS feeds, and they have to, number one, make sure that it is what it is. So if your podcast is not the type of podcast that you actually describe it as, then guess what? They will not approve your podcast. It'll just sit there in limbo. It could sit there in limbo forever. So if you actually said, or it'll get rejected. So if you actually said your podcast is about business and technology, and they listen to it and it sounds like a little comedy hour, and it doesn't sound like you're talking about anything related to what your summary is, then they will either let it just sit there or they will reject you. The other thing is that they actually say that in the little bit of support documentation, they do suggest that you have about 4 or 5 episodes in your RSS feed before you submit, and that speeds up your process. All right. And so, because that way they can actually listen, when they actually pull up your feed and they're reviewing it, they can go in and listen to a couple different episodes to kind of get a feel to make sure that you are what it is. And I think sometimes they just breeze through these. But if you don't make it easy for them to really judge your content, whether or not it's going to be a lot of profanity, that's the other thing. If you have any profanity in your show at all, and you don't have it listed as explicit in the RSS feed, then you'll either get rejected or just sit there forever. But for you, Michael, I'm not sure what the issue was for your particular podcast. And I will tell you what, there is no rhyme or reason as to why it does or does not take a lot of time to get anything done in the iTunes Music Store. Sometimes I'll go in and if you, let's just say you want to delete a podcast, your podcast out of the store, out of the music store. I will tell you what you have to do there is you have to actually go to your listing, and there's a little thing that says report a concern. And if you click that drop down menu, then there's a little thing that says remove a podcast, or remove this, or remove podcast. And then you have to put a little description, and you tell them why you want it removed. And I've seen that happen within 24 hours, and I've seen that take as much as 3 months with multiple requests. It just depends. And I will tell you this, though, Michael, the experience that you've had is really out of the ordinary. I can't remember now because I've been talking so long. How long it took you? Was it 2 weeks, did you say? That is way out of the norm. You should you should actually have your podcast approved usually within 48 hours of you submitting it. That's average. And I'll tell you what, from the ones that I submit, I usually have a success rate of getting podcasts done, submitted, and approved in iTunes within 24 hours. Now, when you actually submit a podcast, you're submitting it under your Apple ID because you have to have an Apple username and password to be able to sign in to iTunes to submit a podcast. And one of the things that I do for all of my clients is I create a little test MP3 file that I throw into the RSS feed. And I know that the guys over at iTunes know my voice by now because every single time they hear it, they know that, hey, Cliff's, helping somebody else launch a podcast. And I don't know if they just know me well enough and they know my stuff that it just gets pushed right through. But even the clients who actually go through the steps of signing in and submitting their own iTunes RSS or their own RSS into iTunes, no more than 48 hours is normal. But it does occasionally happen to where you deal with what you dealt with there, Michael, where it takes weeks and you go to resubmit it and all of a sudden it says, I'm sorry, your feed has already been submitted. The only other workaround to that is you could actually take your feed and recreate a different FeedBurner feed and submit a new feed and maybe get in there quicker than the first one. But then you could end up with a duplicate feed. They don't like that at all over there. So don't take that advice at all. Anyway, Michael, I'm glad that you are in the iTunes store and always happy to hear about a brand new podcaster. Okay, so I'm unpausing again here. I took just a second. I wanted to pull up another brand new podcaster's site here. This is a guy, his name is James Dibben. And I just wanted to point out, this is a guy who's kind of done a majority of the stuff on his own. Now, I do believe he purchased the Audacity 101 training from me that I did a while back, but I think he purchased that and went through and followed all the steps and everything like that. And I want to say that he took all the training that we provided in the Audacity 101 video training product, and he came up with this. Listen to this.
Blue Collar Business Podcast, episode number 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first Blue Collar Business Podcast. My name is James Dibben. I am the owner, curator, whatever you want to call it, over at bluecollarcoaching.net. And I wanted to go ahead and start doing a podcast that is for the blue collar community by a blue collar guy. And so what I'd like to do in this very first episode is kind of give you a quick rundown of me, my story, as it were, and why in the world I think I should be having some kind of a podcast, and why in the world should you even be listening to it. So hopefully I can clear that up in this episode.
Anyway, I'll tell you what, James, I listened to the entire episode, and I am really excited for you. I really appreciated hearing his first episode. Folks, go to, it's actually BCRN.TV, and that stands for Blue Collar Radio Network. BCRN.TV. Listen to episode number 1. And I want to tell you guys, this is a great example of what a first podcast should sound like. You introduce yourself, who you are, and I'll tell you what, he lays it out, and he says Blue Collar Radio Network.TV also works. Very good. But anyway, he lays it out and he tells his story. And I will tell you, I felt connected. I listened to his story. I learned how, I know a little bit about James now. And I know where he lives. I know about his history with family business. I know about how he left the family business to go work in a different place. And I know about the first and I think the only place where he's actually been fired and why he was fired, and his thoughts about, being unemployed for a while and where it's led him to where he is today. So much information about it. And I tell you what, I feel connected, and it's like, you know what? This is a guy who has some experience in business that might be interested to listen to. And I'll tell you, great stuff. James, you're a great example of how somebody can get out there and just put their stuff online. And I encourage people to go check that out. It's BCRN.TV or Blue Collar Radio Network.TV works as well. Anyway, special plug for a guy that I think is doing a great job. not even being paid for it. How about that? All right, so there you go. Although he did buy my Audacity 101, which excellent job, by the way, mixing in your audio with the fade in the beginning. Great job there as well. All right, hey, I have one more piece of audio feedback. And speaking of audio or video training products, here's Sean's call.
Cliff, this is Sean Roberts with a voice message for the podcast Answer Man. I want to let you know I think you're doing a great job as always. You have a lot of interesting content. My question is about the video products that you're producing. I know you did webinars and you're going to turn them into products that people can purchase. Are they out already and available to purchase? Is there some place that I can go? I've heard you say that you made them available to certain people. I can't find them if they're out there. If you could mention that in your next podcast Answer Man show, that would be great. If they're not, when do you think they might be available? Looking forward to the content. You are a very good teacher, and I'm looking forward to learning some of these things. Thanks. Bye.
All right, Sean, thank you for calling in. And you're right. If you go to my site, it's very hard for you to find these. In fact, you'd have to have some kind of direct link to be able to even go to podcastanswerman.com/webinar. And that's where, if you're interested right now, that's where I would go. It's podcastanswerman.com/webinar. And that'll tell you all about the training products that I've produced. Now, basically, I did this back in January and February of this year. I had this thing called the Podcast Answer Man Boot Camp Series, where I did 6 back-to-back over the course of 2 weeks. I did 6 back-to-back 2-hour plus sessions of training on these topics. Social Media 101, how I built my brand. Adobe Audition 101, why and how I use it. WordPress for podcasting, a demo of how I set it up. And basically, you could follow it step-by-step instructions to set up your own self-installed WordPress installation over at Bluehost. And I mean, literally follow it step-by-step and how to get your podcast all the way. I mean, anyway, I go from having no domain, no hosting account to having your domain, hosting account, installing WordPress, configuring all the plugins that or installing the plugins you need, configuring everything, setting up your RSS feed, and then setting up your FeedBurner feed and submitting it to iTunes. Everything from beginning to end in the WordPress for podcasting. And I mean, literally, I created a podcast in less than 2 hours, and it's in that video. And you could follow it step by step. Let's see here. What I look at when I do 100, it's called evaluating a podcast. Basically, people hire me all the time to evaluate their podcast and help give some pointers on how to improve, to take things to the next level for them to grow their audience or to build their community and stuff like that. There are approximately 100 things that I look at when I do that. And this training series is where I literally go through and I share all the things I look at and what I'm looking for and why I'm looking for them. Very valuable training product. GarageBand 101 for podcasters. Everything you need to know about GarageBand to get you podcasting with your free software included on the Mac. Audacity 101, which I actually brought in my friend Daniel Lewis to help co-produce that training product, and basically it'll help you understand to be able to do the podcast much in the same way as my friend James that I just played his audio. He said he followed that step by step to help him get the audio quality that he did. And then, of course, there's the behind the scenes of how I do Premium Plus membership here for GSPN.TV, where I hold back certain episodes for people who are paid subscribers. Not necessarily, not on Podcast Answer Man, mind you, but certainly on many of the other shows that I produce. So anyway, that was the Podcast Answer Man Boot Camp series. Each of those sessions are completely 100%. I'm proud to announce they're all produced and post-processed. And they're all online on podcastanswerman.com. Now, I currently still do not have the buttons and the page where it's got the descriptions and everything all written out and where you can actually click a little button to buy now. But here's the thing. Email me, Cliff just go to podcastanswerman.com. On the right-hand side at the top of the site, you'll see my email addresses really in bold print right underneath the call me today. It's got cliff@ravenscraft.org. That's my email address, cliff@ravenscraft.org, or I think you could probably just do cliff@podcastanswerman.com and tell me which one of those you want to purchase. And basically, I just send you a PayPal invoice, and then I'll send you the information on how to access that. And by the way, with the training products that I have, you get the original QuickTime movie files that you can download, and you keep them for as long as you want. They're higher quality because they are, it's good professional, high quality video, high quality audio on those products. In fact, let me pause for just a second. Okay, so I found what I'm looking for here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a little clip from Social Media 101. And by the way, James wanted me to tell you that that the audio from his first podcast, that's the first time, that was his first attempt ever to do anything with audio. So go check that out. That was his first attempt, and I think it pretty much helps completely eliminate all the learning curve that you need there to produce high quality audio. Anyway, so here's a little clip just to give you the idea of what the audio sounds like from the training product Social Media 101.
Now, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the author Seth Godin. Seth Godin is an excellent author. He writes very small books that are easy to consume, those are my favorite, but they're usually pretty powerful in the actual content inside. And a book that he wrote not too long ago, about maybe 2 years ago, was a book called Tribes, Tribes, Tribes. And I would encourage anybody who is interested here today enough to actually come and listen to me talk for about 2.5 hours about community. You definitely should go and pick up the book Tribes by Seth Godin and get a greater understanding of just how much value you have to offer to the world.
All right, so there you go. So you can tell this isn't just me on the telephone with a bunch of people, although there are parts in many of the training sessions because I did them as webinars and people were on the telephone listening when we were doing it live. All of my audio, which is a majority of the audio in these sessions, in this training, is all high quality studio audio. So I really want to encourage you guys to check it out. In fact, I just finished post-production on all of it. And I want to just tell you, Social Media 101, How I Built My Brand, it talks about my approach to building relationships and community with people and why I use WordPress. I mean, there's so many things. You definitely want that one. That one, evaluating a podcast, and if you haven't yet created your own WordPress page and are kind of intimidated by it, there's some really great training products. And just so you know, Sean, I am getting ready to build a page here within the next couple of days so that you can actually just click and purchase. But in case that doesn't happen, because I'm so busy with my consulting schedule, and even on the Fridays and Mondays that I have open, just things pop up here and there. But I will tell you, email me. I have every single one of those available. Here's the good news. All right. The good news is I'm going to start the music so that Stephanie can do her podcast in just a second. But the good news is that all of them are available. They're $100 each. There are there are 7 of them there. So you could buy any one of them for $100 each. But here's the deal. If you buy all of them, you get them for $595, which is an additional 15% discount. So there you go. Anyway, folks, I am finished. I am wrapped up for the week, and I am going to go. Stephanie's got the Full-Time Mom podcast that she's getting ready to record live here in the studio. Again, I want to let you know, folks, there is a very high chance that if you leave a voicemail for a Podcast Answer Man, you could show up with it definitely within the next 3 episodes. So this is probably the lowest I've had on the upcoming questions for Podcast Answer Man. So give me a call. 859-795-4067. Again, the phone number 859-795-4067. I'll get to your question here on Podcast Answer Man. And of course, if you have any other questions, comments, feedback related to the show, you can send that into feedback at gspn.tv. God bless you all. Until next time, join the community.